is ever present. It is the nature of our world, a continuous thread running through the fabric of our lives. Sometimes violent, sometimes sudden, sometimes absurd. We have grown used to its inevitability, its regularity. But every so often, something happens which catches you unaware, and the sadness and frustration grasps you, reminding you once more of the darkness all around. In that moment, you realize that not all darkness is equal. The shadows surrounding your settlement, though shrouded, are somehow shallower and less overwhelming than the darkness further in. And from that deeper place, a darker death comes with it. Look at how easily you accept death. The phoenix may snap you out of existence, but in hunting any great game, there is honor. We can live with this. The lion, our early competitor, the hunter and the hunted, we strive to understand and survive, and so give our lives for the betterment of our people. We can live with this. And the antelope, we share in its position at the bottom of the food chain. In its frantic struggle to survive, it may take a few of us with it, often causing unnecessary and frankly comedic deaths, but an end in pursuit of a means to support our settlement on an ongoing basis. We can live with this too. And beyond that end, beyond survival, we find there is nothing. We live with this. The inevitable blackness is both terrifying and comforting. We know ourselves as nothing more than mere competitors in the fight to survive, just like all the beasts we confront. But that's merely the darkness we know, not the darkness much further in. Then, like 1,000 armoured feet marching one after the other, comes the arrival of the Kingsman, heralding a cacophony of tragic revelations. It threatens to smash the very wheel on which our philosophy of life is based, but it is merely a veil of hope, concealing the brutal commitment of the Kingsmen and their unwavering service to this kingdom of death. I do not speak such tragic and dramatised words without good reason. You must understand, when all you have ever seen is a beast struggle to survive, it is easy to believe that nothing lies beyond this delicate ecosystem. It's something we have all come to know and understand and adopt as our way of life. When life hands you a sword, then you become a warrior. But from the darkness came those much like ourselves, distant cousins whose armour shines, whose cloth is clean, whose surmounting of the world is pure, like the royal plume that sprouts from their helm. Whilst their motives seem alien and incomprehensible, they acted with true and decided motivation. There was thought and meaning behind their actions. These were beings whose lives had escaped the cycle and had created rituals which drive them. Beings who safely wander through the deepest darkness, bestowing a heavy hand as control or a helping hand by means of direction. The arrival of the armoured strangers was a promise of possibility. If they are able to wander the plane of many faces, that calm and pristine, then one can only imagine the settlement they have constructed. They present a dream to chase, proven possible by their very presence, and a barrier broken is not easily repaired. So the Kingsman presents a choice. Accept your place within the ecosystem, accept darkness and struggle, or fight back and strive for the glory that you see before you. And you can see this challenge embedded in their very actions. If they find a thriving settlement, they might just decide to bring those numbers down. And you can accept this, you can accept your position, and you can accept those deaths. You can remain part of that cycle and part of the hierarchy. In the end, what's a few lives for the sake of the whole settlement? Isn't that what you've been doing this whole time? but you can also choose to fight back. And with the sword to your throat, what do you really have to lose? We must recognize that in victory, we would step one rung upwards. We could let that conflict with the Kingsmen, no matter how overwhelming, put potential to the test. We can discover from them, those servants of the King, the rulers of this kingdom, what it takes to escape the cycle of death. And now the dream is in your mind. What choice do you have? So let's go forth and learn how one who lives in such an advanced settlement wields a weapon. And quickly, clearly, you will find the answer is with a dedicated refinement, with a beautiful simplicity that has distilled the emotions of combat into a set of systematic movements, leaving little room to strike and forcing an overwhelming pressure on their combatant. Almost counterintuitively, the rhythmic patterns which would normally be a sign of weakness leave little room to strike. Varying only slightly, the Kingsman acts with foundational perfection, with a precise speed, strength and movement that repeats like clockwork, relying on different aspects of their weapon to slice, bludgeon or smash their opponents. Without emotional hesitance, they stick to their routine, but perhaps at last, the Kingsmen have encountered a foe more capable than they expected. You've been confronted with such speed and pressure before, haven't you? As your mind and body recall the onslaught of the butcher, you begin to feel the Kingsman's rhythm beating in your heart. And 1, and 2, and 3, and strike. Wound the Kingsman. Ignore the fact there is no reaction. And 1, and 2, and 3, and again. And 1, and 2, and you glance to a friend. Their timing is off, and a crashing blow to their side knocks them to the ground. The routine breaks. Without hesitation, even as you fly forwards, the Kingsman does not pause, delivering the coup de grace, and now there are 3 of you. Held at a distance once again as the routine restarts. Numbers simply do not overwhelm the Kingsman. Its focus on you did nothing to prevent a death, a lesson quickly learned. Then an arrow whistles past your ear, fired in time with the Kingsman's movements, but a quick spin of the halberd trivializes the effort to deflect it. The living wall of armor grows grander before you, and the beating heart that runs beneath the world and penetrates all things grows louder. The sword in your hand grows heavy, and you drop to your knees, compelled by that silent hymn to crawl. In this moment of weakness, another party member's life is dashed against the stone faces. There should be 2 of you, but you feel alone, the pounding growing louder. And 1, and 2, and 3, and from the shadows, behind the Kingsman a form appears, driving a dagger into a crack in the armour. The sheer force and precision causes the Kingsman to buckle before you and release a shrieking cry of agony that knots your stomach. Then a body hits the floor. It was not the Kingsman screaming. The golden armour before you spins to face the attacker. Green fluid like poisonous blood oozes from the back of the Kingsman. And on the floor, your last party member, their skin dissolving from the green acid that erupted onto their face. Something is wrong, but there's no time to hesitate. You've been trained by the world of death. Take your opportunity when you see it. With perfect rhythm that even the Kingsman would struggle to match, you strike at the head of the enemy with such force to crack the helm and watch as the Kingsman's body falls at last. Peace settles, but that uncovered rhythm, sounding silently beneath the world, continues. There is a sudden realization of the acid that spewed from the body of the Kingsman. No person could survive with such blood coursing through them. It was a trap, more malicious, more violent than any you've previously encountered. What is a Kingsman? You approach the body cautiously, stripping away the remains of the cracked helm, and beneath you find a face. But it is a face you used to know, and then it crumbles to dust, and nothing remains but a shell of armor. The illusion shatters. This thing was not human. Perhaps once, but not now. And then the walls of your mind fall. Within your chest, a burning sensation evolves into a devastating eruption of pain and bone, your ribs piercing through your chest and surrounding you. You try to breathe, but nothing happens. You gasp for air that won't come. The pain eventually subsides, and despite the suffocating feeling, you remain alive, adorned with the chest piece of a Kingsman. I will attempt no subtlety. The Kingsman was not as it once appeared. It is not external to the world that we inhabit. Far, far worse. It is the very essence of the world, distilled into a single suit of armor. Before its arrival, we dreamed of nothing greater than to survive. But from their arrival, there was born in us the seed of an idea. That we could rise, that we could escape the cycle of the world. And now that's been let out of the bottle, there's no way to put it back in. We now stare longingly into the darkness, knowing the only thing that lies beyond is a darkness even more deep and disturbing. We all carry a burden of a dream that we know can never be. Before, survival was the point. But now, to survive? What is the point? The Kingsman, or whatever it is they serve, has perfected its art, and maybe that's why they are king. Inevitably, you will kneel. If you rebel, if you fight and somehow succeed, you are assimilated. Do you now realize the brilliance of the king? Survival of the fittest. If the king's servants die, then the victors become the new servants. The army simply grows in strength, and there is no reason to ever slow down. There is no break, no need to rest and plan. Every failure only brings them closer to victory. What terrifying, unstoppable progression towards complete domination. How does one fight that which grows stronger in defeat? We can attempt to slow the spread of the curse. We can remain home, losing our will to fight. We can remain human for far longer. But is this not too a victory for the enemy? Our strongest simply pacified? Or we can avoid the curse altogether, live beneath the rule of the Kingsmen, allowing them to cull our numbers and keep our settlement small, annihilating all dreams of something more. There is one thing that we could try. There is one glimmer of hope, but it does not shine like a star in our minds. It's a black void drawing us in, further into the darkness. Our only goal is survival, by any means. We know of settlements whose silk surgeons have kept walking limb factories. We know of settlements who utilize less than capable survivors to produce untold offspring, to bolster their numbers. In a world where every life can be put to good use to increase the well-being of the settlement, we've seen a lot of questionable things. Well, if we want to get the better of the Kingsmen, we might need to do the same. We might take some of our less capable people, or those with lesser potential, and allow them unknowingly to land the killing blow on the Kingsmen. We might subdue the curse by forcing it on those whose purpose to us is little more than cannon fodder. I do not suggest this approach lightly, but it's an option that carries with it the slightest hint of a joke played back towards the king. In his court, perhaps we can take the role of the defiant jester. You just have to ask yourself, are we any different from the king if we so readily follow in his footsteps?